Still broke down out here. This thing's been here for over a week. It's too bad. They might have abandoned it. There's no truck or anything pulling it. Nobody came back for it. That's what homeless people do. When it breaks down, they don't have, I mean, they don't actually own it. They don't have the title. They don't have insurance, nothing. I mean, how many times does a policeman, pull trailers over to check their, titles and everything? Probably not very often, because policemen are way too busy. That happens in Portland and Seattle, all down the I-5 corridor all the time. Several times a day. Abandoned motorhomes, trailers, fifth wheels, campers. Lots and lots of drug addiction. That's what it is. They're addicted to drugs. I'll tell you a true story. You don't believe me. I got more experience in this than you do. I used to work for the Salvation Army Men's Center a long time ago, back in Iowa. I worked with a girl 25 years ago in Colorado. She just got out of prison. And this was at a motel. And she'd been out of prison for like 3 months, She went to a halfway house, and then she got out on her own. And we were talking, and she says, "You want to know why I went to prison?" I said, "Well, not really. I mean, if you want to tell me." She said, "I was addicted to crack cocaine." I said, "Yeah, well, I mean, back then I didn't know much about it. It was just kind of the beginning of the epidemic 30 years ago. Now it's fentanyl. Next year it'll be something else." She said, I was so high. Well, this is a true story. She said, when I was like 25 years old, I was so high that I sold my baby to someone for more crack cocaine. I sold my 6-month-old baby to someone. I said, wow. She says, I don't remember it. She said, I don't even remember doing it or even being at the place. She said, luckily, the people I sold the baby to, they were drug dealers, but they were somewhat responsible. They called the police and told them that I just sold my baby for drugs. And the police came and took my baby away and put me in jail for 3 years. And that was good because she went through drug treatment, rehabilitation. She went through a lot of programs in jail. Even Christian programs, in the Bible, everything. And that was where she was able to get clean for 3 years. And she was from Iowa too. That's why we started talking. I said, do you get to see your children now? She said, nope, I never get to see them again. They were adopted to somebody else, and I'm not ever allowed to know where they went. She said, I had 2 children, and I sold one, and they took both my children. That was part of the agreement. And I'll never see my children as long as I live again because of drugs. She said only when the children turn 18 they can choose on their own to come and find me. So hopefully that happened. She was able, this was 20. So her children would be like 30 years old today. 25 years old. The same age that she was when she sold her baby to someone for more crack. Now, I don't know if it was crack or methamphetamines. I don't know what the difference is. I've known a lot of people die from drug overdose. A lot of close friends of mine have died from drug overdose, or people at my age, they died of alcoholism. That alcoholism came before all the drugs, because alcohol, since the Prohibition years, the 1930s, this country's been, drowning in alcohol, one form or another. Even wine, I knew a lady who died from a wine. She was like 58 years old. It's like 15 years ago. She was an alcoholic and her main drink was wine, and she died. That's what I'm saying. A lot of this is going on out there. They say today 1 out of every 6 people who tries alcohol becomes an alcoholic. Now, I just learned that in the last 10 years because of the internet. Also, ministers and preachers learn a lot about people, and that's their business, people, by having the internet. And you can learn a lot about what people are doing in the world during these last days. And the number is 1 out of every 6 people who just take a drink of alcohol for the first time eventually become a full-blown alcoholic. 1 out of every 6. Even Alcoholics Anonymous agrees with that number. Most Christians agree with that number. And I think the same is true about drugs, but it depends on which drug you try. I mean, I know people who are fully addicted to marijuana their whole life, since age 12. They can't go one single day without smoking 3 joints a day. And they say, oh, it's healthy. Yeah. And you look at them, their whole life's falling apart. They've been smoking pot for 30 years. Or 40 years. Some of them are in their 50s. Their skin's all yellow. And it's the same as smoking cigarettes for 30 years. You're smoking, you got the smoke going in you. I know people who are fully addicted to gambling so much that they spent 10 years in jail because they can't stop gambling. Now, they didn't go to jail for gambling. They went to jail for stealing. They were stealing so they could gamble. They sold their house and spent the whole thing on gambling. They maxed all their credit cards and never paid them back. They started stealing from their parents. They started stealing from their wife. They started screaming and beating their kids. They would steal a chair and take it to a pawn shop to get money to gamble. So the end result of stealing, there was a guy in the, this has happened how many times, I don't even know, but I read a thing last year in the news. A guy in Oregon was robbing banks, and the way they caught him was he'd rob a bank and then go to the casino. Now today when you rob a bank, you're only going to get about $500 because they don't keep much money up front anymore. So the guy would rob the bank and then get on the public bus. No, that's not true. I think he was riding his bicycle because he sold his car. And that's what the FBI will tell you. One of the first places we check for bank robbers is there a casino in the area? And that's how they caught the guy. And then he robbed like 3 places in one day and kept going back to the casino and losing all the money. I'm not making fun. It sounds funny, but it's not funny. They say that 70% of homeless people have one addiction in one form or another. I know people have pornography addictions. They can't go 3 hours without looking at some more pornography on the internet. And they go to pornography classes, they go to counseling, they go to therapy, they talk to ministers. What they say, 1 out of every 8 ministers now can't stop. This is a true story. Look it up. Ask any minister or pastor. 1 out of every 8, I think it is. It's not as bad as regular people, but 1 out of, I think what's within 1 out of every 15 ministers or pastors can't stop looking at pornography. It's the kind of thing, once you start looking at it, you can't stop. And with your cell phone right there. And what they have to do, I guess, now I heard pastors talking about this on the radio, and I looked it up on Google. I couldn't believe it was true myself, because I don't, I'm not as smart as most of you. I don't believe half this stuff is even happening. So I did a little research. Turns out they got dozens of nationwide groups that help only ministers and pastors and clergy with their pornography addictions. They're just for clergy only. That is incredible. This person's walking right in the middle of the highway. This person has their door open in the highway. These people are walking down in front of the traffic here. That's one of the most dangerous places, Hobbit Trail, because this is Highway 101. People are doing 55 miles an hour going through there. It's one of the last places I mean, people just park on the side of that road and walk off onto the beach. It's one of the last places they allow. Any place else I go, you'd all be getting tickets one after another. But apparently around here they allow it, so. So, to finish up here, it's not surprising that you have, 10 or 20 motorhomes in the state of Oregon being abandoned every day on the side of the road, somewhere in the state of Oregon. And in California, it's probably closer to like 50 to 100 motorhomes every day abandoned on the side of the roads from homeless people who have one or several addictions. And that's how the devil wins. That's how the enemy wins. You don't turn your life over to Christ. You don't follow Jesus Christ. You follow the world. And the world is not satisfying or fulfilling you, so you turn to drugs and alcohol and sex and substances, trying to get fulfilled inside. And then once you go down that road, these things take a hold of you and you can't shake them off. You can't get rid of them. And I don't really use the word addiction, but that's what society today says. That's what an addiction is. Something you can't stop even though you want to, or at least part of you wants to stop, and you can't stop. Now imagine what would happen to you if you kept eating red meat and never stopped. Like if you had to have an 8-ounce red steak 3 times a day, you would eventually be dead in about a year. You'd overdose on red meat. What people don't understand, today we have all kinds of addictions like selfie addictions, people who are addicted to selfies, people who are addicted to Instagram. There's probably a higher percentage of people addicted to Instagram than alcoholism. And the same with Facebook and YouTube. And you have to tell everybody, not really like my channel just tells, things on the Oregon coast, and then we talk about Christian subjects like the one we're talking about now. No, it's an addiction where you have to have people watching you personally, or you don't feel fulfilled anymore. Like if you don't have 5 or 10 people every 3 hours say, oh, you're great, oh, that's great, oh, that's great, that's great. It's usually young girls under 25. And now we have people who are addicted to their private channels where they take their clothes off. These 19-year-old girls take their clothes off for money online. And because they're getting money, they think it's okay. Oh, I'm doing a good thing. They say, I'm making a living. No, you're not. You're like a private online stripper. That's against God. That's not a way to make a living. That's selling your soul for money. And they brag about it. I mean, there was one girl, she was the #1 person for doing that, and she quit and gave her life to Jesus Christ, and now she travels around the world talking about how she was making like $6 million a year. And she found Jesus Christ and then realized what she was doing was completely against God. There was a homeless guy back there with a hammock on the side of the guardrail on the other side. He tied it up on both sides, and he was sleeping in a hammock next to the guardrail on the other side so no one would hit him. And he had a gallon of water there, and a homeless guy was sleeping right there in the guardrail in a hammock. One of those ones that zip up like a tent. He was a homeless guy out here in the middle of nowhere, sleeping in a hammock with 1 gallon of water and nothing else to his name. Wow. That's what I'm saying. It's probably drugs have driven him to that place in his life. I mean, if you find yourself sleeping next to a guardrail in the ditch, you're probably pretty close to rock bottom. This one lady called Dave Ramsey's daughter up, the financial Christian guy, and she said, "We have a problem. My daughter is an Instagram star, and they signed her up, you know, companies and everything, and she's supposed to make $200,000 next year because she has like 1 million subscribers." And they said, "Well, what's the issue?" "Well, she wants to buy a $100,000 car, and she's going to be 16 years old. Look at that old car, whoa. And of course, Dave Ramsey's daughter said, "Well, the issue really isn't the money. The issue is she feels she needs a $100,000 car to be fulfilled in life. That it's an issue of she's lacking fulfillment." And Dave Ramsey's daughter specializes with working with people that make a lot of money online. Because Dave Ramsey's daughter makes a lot of money online. Now let me end this here. This is just a few of the issues of our time since 2010. In the last 15 years, this is just a few of the issues that are taking full control of our society. If you wonder why things are going the way they're going, you see, you got one girl out of 100,000 people online making, say, $15,000 a month on Instagram. One out of 100,000. But there's 25,000 people who see her channel and say, "That's what I want to do." And they don't realize it's not going to happen. It only happens to 1 out of 100,000 people make that much money. I mean, there's a lot of people that make a couple thousand a month, but even that is very low percentage. You can't even hardly make money on YouTube now. But what happens is 25,000 or 10,000 kids go, "I'm not going to go to work at the grocery store. I'm not going to work 40 hours a week. I'm going to become an Instagram star." So you got one person that's successful and 10,000 people who are trying to be successful and refuse to get a full-time job. That's what's happening in our society. So you got about Upwards to 10% of people are addicted to gambling. 25% of people are addicted to pornography. 40% of people are addicted to being online. 70% of Americans are so far in debt, it'll take them 15 years to get out of their current debt if they don't borrow anymore. 60% of Americans have zero money in the bank at all of any kind. About 8% of Americans are addicted to drugs, and another 8% are addicted to alcohol. The average used car payment is $550 a month. The average new car payment just went over $725 a month. The average house payment is now $2,500 a month, minimum. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Only 30% of all Christians have read the Bible once in the last 30 days. I know all these percentages. I'm very close on all of them. Only 3 out of every 10 confessing Christians claim that they've read the Bible once in the last month. And 50% of Christians say they do not pray on a daily basis. So when you look around, what's happening in society? Well, that's what's happening. The Bible verse says, in the last days, people will become lovers of themselves, lovers of money, rude, obnoxious, people without love, rash, harsh, treacherous. And that's what we're seeing. That's one of the signs, you know, we're in the very last days. That's one of the signs that you can see everyone's going down this vicious and vile road. And most people, we've made capitalism our God with a small g. We've made capitalism our false God. Capitalism, consumerism, commercialism, and selfism. That's the new religion of 2025 is selfism. You are becoming your own little God. And I think within the next 2 years, I wish this weren't true, but it's just what I hear the Lord telling me when I pray and read the Bible. Within the next 2 years, 2026, 27, so maybe sometime in 2028, I think there's going to be a huge, something bad happening, a shift of some kind. I mean, it could be an earthquake, a volcano, a collapse of the entire stock market, a collapse of the entire housing market. It could be a collapse of the monetary systems of the world. It could be 2 major countries start fighting each other with weapons and blowing up like Navy ships and stuff in the sea. I don't have the answer. I just hear what I hear. And I believe by 2028, we're going to see something big that's going to affect your life, and you're not going to like it. Now, the way to prepare for that is to follow Jesus, give your life to Jesus, pray every day, read the Bible every day, Eat healthy foods, drink water, become 100% debt-free, and save 25% of your income every month and never touch it. Inside of a secure savings account at your bank, no investments. And then have like 6 months worth of food at your house and some kind of system where you can get water. And then whatever happens, really, you're going to be in the best possible situation. It probably won't affect you that much. And, you know, I can hear people, that'll never happen, Dave. Dave, that'll never happen, Dave. Dave, because we're America. Nothing will ever happen to America. God would never allow America to suffer. We have turned our backs on Jesus. Why would God not punish us? Well, I'll just leave it right there. I think I gave you enough to think about.